airplane cabin buzzed with the usual hum of a packed commercial flight out of New York City. Businessmen in crisp suits tapped away on laptops. A couple of VIPs sipped overpriced cocktails, and flight attendants weaved through the aisles, their smiles tight. Against the window in economy, a young woman sat quietly, her presence barely registering to the crowd. Her jeans were patched at the elbows, faded blue from years of wear. Her sneakers, scuffed and frayed at the laces, looked like they'd seen better days. In her hands, she clutched a small, worn fabric toad, holding it like it was her lifeline. No makeup, no polished pretense, just a face that didn't care to compete for attention. The other passengers noticed her, but not in a kind way. A few rose up. Kaylee, an influencer in her early 20s with glossy highlights and a phone practically glued to her hand, was live streaming to her thousands of followers. Her voice carried bright and performative as she angled for the perfect shot. Across the aisle, Claire, a corporate consultant in her mid-30s, sat with perfect posture in a sleek navy dress, her manicured nails catching the overhead light. She leaned toward her colleague, a balding man in a pinstripe suit, and said, loud enough for others to hear, "I bet she's one of those charity cases the airline lets on for PR." Snickers rippled nearby. A flight attendant muttered under her breath that the woman had used her last dime for that seat. The cabin's chatter felt like a collective dismissal, laughing her off as a nobody. But then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, tense and clipped, announcing a warning signal. The plane jolted slightly and murmurs spread. Outside the window, strange lights flickered. Two F-22s, sleek and unidentifiable, darting through the sky. The cabin fell silent. The woman by the window opened her eyes, her gaze steady, and whispered, "They're here for me." Minutes later, the cabin's judgment dissolved into unease. Kaylee's live stream faltered, her phone forgotten. Claire's perfect posture slumped as she glanced out the window. The woman with the fabric toad didn't flinch, her grip tightening on the small, tattered keepsake. Whoever she wasn't a nobody anymore. The cabin lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across the faces of passengers now frozen in their seats. The two F-22s, sleek, metallic, and impossibly fast, hovered just beyond the plane's wings, their outlines shimmering against the night sky. Whispers of panic rippled through the rows. Kaylee's phone clattered to the floor, her live stream abandoned, her perfectly curated confidence unraveling. Claire, the corporate consultant, gripped the armrest, her manicured nails digging into the cheap plastic. "What the hell are those things?" her colleague muttered, his pinstripe suit suddenly seeming like flimsy armor. The woman by the window stayed calm, her eyes locked on the strange crafts outside. Her patched jeans and scuffed sneakers grounded her in a way that felt almost defiant against the polished chaos around her. The fabric toad in her hands, faded and stitched together like a childhood relic, seemed to pulse with quiet significance. She didn't move, didn't speak again, but her whisper, "They're here for me," hung in the air like a prophecy. The captain's voice crackled again, strained. "Folks, we're experiencing, an unexpected situation. Please remain seated and calm." But calm was long gone. A businessman a few rows back yanked at his tie, muttering about government cover-ups. A mother clutched her toddler who was too scared to cry. The flight attendants, trained for turbulence, and drunken passengers exchanged glances that betrayed their lack of protocol for this. Then a low hum vibrated through the cabin, not from the plane's engines, but from outside. The two F-22s shifted, aligning in a perfect triangle, their surfaces glinting like liquid metal. The woman by the window slowly unbuckled her seatbelt and stood, ignoring the gasps and the flight attendant's sharp, "Ma'am, sit down." She moved with purpose, her frayed laces dragging slightly as she stepped into the aisle. Every eye was on her now, not with judgment, but with a mix of fear and desperate curiosity. Kaylee, scrambling to regain her influencer bravado, grabbed her phone and aimed it at the woman. "Guys, this is insane. Oh my God, is she actually?" Her voice cut off as the woman turned, her gaze piercing through the cabin's haze. For the first time, people noticed her eyes, sharp, almost luminous, like they held secrets no one else could fathom. Claire stood, her corporate composure cracking. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice louder than than intended. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the emergency exit, the fabric toad still clutched in one hand. The hum outside grew louder, syncing with the pounding heartbeats of the passengers. A soft glow seeped through the windows, bathing the cabin in an eerie, pale light. The businessman in the suit shouted, "She's going to open the door, stop her!" But no one moved. Not the flight attendants, not the VIPs, not even Claire, who now looked small despite her sleek navy dress. The woman placed a hand on the emergency exit lever, and the cabin seemed to hold its breath. The two F-22s outside pulsed, their lights syncing with her movements. Then she spoke, her voice low but clear, cutting through the chaos. "They've been waiting for me, and I'm ready." Before anyone could react, the hum crescendoed, and a blinding flash enveloped the plane. When the light faded, the woman was gone. The emergency exit was still sealed, the fabric toad lying alone on the floor where she'd stood. The two F-22s vanished into the night. The cabin erupted in shouts, sobs, and frantic questions, but no answers came. Kaylee's phone was still recording, capturing the empty aisle and the tattered toad. Claire sank back into her seat, her perfect posture forgotten. The captain's voice returned, shaky, announcing they were rerouting to the nearest airport. But no one felt safe anymore. Whoever she was, she'd left something behind. Not just the toad, but a crack in the world they thought they knew. The plane touched down at JFK under a blanket of emergency lights, sirens wailing as first responders swarmed the tarmac. Passengers were herded off in a daze, their designer bags and tailored suits forgotten in the overhead bins. Kaylee stumbled out first, her glossy highlights disheveled, clutching her phone like a talisman. Her live stream had gone viral in the chaos, millions tuning in to the footage of the vanishing woman and the eerie lights. Comments flooded in, "Fake AF, government psyop, she's an alien queen." But Kaylee knew it was real. She could still feel the hum in her bones. Claire followed, her sleek navy dress wrinkled, her corporate facade shattered. She barked orders at her colleague, demanding he pull strings with their firm's DC contacts. "This wasn't turbulence or some glitch," she hissed. "Those things, two F-22s, they weren't ours." Her mind raced through boardroom scenarios, lawsuits against the airline, NDAs, maybe even a congressional hearing. But deep down, she wondered if arguing her way out of this one was even possible. The fabric toad was collected as evidence by stone-faced FAA investigators, zipped into a clear bag like a museum artifact. No one knew what it was, a toy, a symbol. Whispers spread among the ground crew. The woman had no ID on record, no boarding pass trace. Her seat had been booked under a generic name, paid in cash at the counter. Security footage showed her slipping through the terminal like a ghost, avoiding cameras with uncanny precision. By morning, the story exploded across cable news. CNN ran loops of shaky passenger videos, experts debating if the two F-22s were experimental drones, foreign incursions, or something extraterrestrial. Fox speculated on deep state involvement, while MSNBC interviewed psychologists about mass hysteria. Kaylee, now a reluctant celebrity, sat in a green room, prepping for her first interview. She whispered, "They're here for me," she recounted, her voice trembling for the cameras. Ratings soared. Claire, holed up in a midtown hotel, paced her suite. Her phone buzzed with emails from clients pulling out. Too much uncertainty. She stared at the city skyline, half expecting those lights to reappear. Her colleague had vanished into meetings with lawyers, leaving her alone with doubts. Had she judged too harshly? That woman, with her patched jeans and frayed laces, had been the center of something cosmic. Weeks passed, and the incident faded into conspiracy forums and late-night podcasts. The plane was grounded for inspections that found nothing. No breach, no residue. The fabric toad, analyzed in a lab, it revealed odd fibers, untraceable origins. Kaylee milked her fame, launching a merch line, "They're Here" tees and toad plushies. Claire climbed the corporate ladder harder, burying the fear in PowerPoints and deals. But on quiet nights, passengers from that flight would wake sweating, dreaming of the hum and the woman's luminous eyes. And somewhere in the vast American sky, the two F-22s waited, silent guardians or harbingers ears, ready for the next whisper. The world kept turning, but a thread had unraveled and no one could stitch it back. Months turned into a year, and the Flight 422 incident, as the media dubbed it, had morphed into a cultural phenomenon. Bumper stickers reading "They're here for me" dotted cars from LA freeways to Texas highways. Hollywood churned out a straight-to-streaming thriller, with A-listers playing exaggerated versions of Kaylee and Claire. Conspiracy podcasts dissected every frame of the viral footage, zooming in on the fabric toad like it was the Zapruder film. But in the heartland, folks treated it like folklore, a modern-day Roswell, whispered over diner coffee in Ohio or barbecues in Georgia. Kaylee had parlayed her 15 minutes into a full-blown empire. From her sleek LA loft, she hosted "They're Here" live streams, interviewing self-proclaimed abductees and hawking branded energy drinks for when the lights come calling. Her follower count hit 8 figures, but the glamour masked the nightmares. She'd wake up gasping, the hum echoing in her ears, her glossy highlights matted with sweat. One night, scrolling through fan theories, she stumbled on a dark web forum post, coordinates in the Nevada desert, linked to 2 F-22 sightings. On a whim, she booked a red-eye to Vegas, trading her influencer heels for hiking boots. Claire, meanwhile, had climbed to VP at her firm, her navy dresses upgraded to power suits. But the incident haunted her quarterly reports like a glitch in the Matrix. Clients joked about it during Zoom calls. "Hey Claire, seen any UFOs lately?" But she saw the doubt in their eyes. Digging deeper on her own time, she hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-FBI type from DC. His report landed in her inbox. The fabric toad's fibers matched no known material, with isotopic signatures hinting at off-world origins. And those 2 F-22s, blurry radar logs from NORAD, showed similar blips over Area 51, scrubbed from public records. Their paths crossed in the most American way, a dusty motel off Route 93, where UFO hunters gathered annually. Kaylee arrived in a rented Jeep, her phone ready for content. Claire pulled up in a black SUV, her manicured nails tapping the wheel. They recognized each other instantly, the live stream diva and the corporate shark, bonded by that fateful flight. Over lukewarm beers in the motel bar, they swapped stories. "I thought you were all flash," Claire admitted. Kaylee shrugged. "And I pegged you for a suit with no soul. But that woman, she changed everything." The next day, they followed the coordinates into the desert, the sun baking the sagebrush. No signal, no backup, just 2 women chasing ghosts. As dusk fell, the hum returned, low and insistent. Lights flickered on the horizon. 2 F-22s, hovering like sentinels. Kaylee's camera shook as she filmed. Claire whispered, "They're here." But for whom? In the glow, a figure emerged from the shadows. Familiar patched jeans, scuffed sneakers, the fabric toad tucked under her arm. She looked unchanged, her eyes luminous. "You sought me," she said, her voice carrying over the wind. "But it's not about me. It's about you, all of you." The thread unravels further. Before they could respond, the crafts descended, enveloping them in light. When it cleared, the desert was empty again, save for Kaylee's dropped phone, still recording. The video hit the net hours later, courtesy of a passing trucker. 2 women vanishing just like before. America woke to chaos. FEMA alerts, Pentagon briefings, late-night Oval Office huddles. The president addressed the nation from the Rose Garden, urging calm amid stock market dips and border surges. But in living rooms from coast to coast, people stared at the skies, clutching their own talismans, photos, heirlooms, anything anchoring them to the ordinary. The 2 F-22s had returned, not as invaders, but messengers. And this time, the whisper was for everyone. "We're ready." The world teetered on the edge. One unraveling thread from the unknown. The desert sands of Nevada whispered secrets under a star-lit sky. But the vanished women left echoes that rippled across the nation like a shockwave. The truckers' upload of Kaylee's final video exploded overnight. Hashtags like "They're Here" and "Desert Vanishing" trending from Silicon Valley coders to Midwest farmers scrolling on their phones. By dawn on the East Coast, morning shows from Good Morning America to Fox and Friends dissected the footage frame by frame. Is this the end times or elaborate hoax? One anchor pondered while experts in tinfoil hats and PhDs debated on split screens. In Washington, D.C., the Pentagon's war rooms buzzed with urgency. Generals in starched uniforms pored over satellite imagery, tracing the two F-22's paths to black sites in the Rockies and whispers of Project Blue Book reboots. The president, fresh from a Camp David retreat, convened the National Security Council in the Situation Room. "We can't let this spiral into panic," he said, his Texas drawl steady but his eyes weary. FEMA stockpiled supplies in warehouses from Atlanta to Seattle, prepping for what, if anything, was coming. Whispers leaked to the press. These weren't Russian drones or Chinese tech. The isotopic traces screamed, "Not from around here." Back in L.A., Kaylee's loft sat empty, her energy drink empire on autopilot as interns fielded calls from Netflix execs hungry for docuseries rights. Her fans formed vigil groups, camping in Joshua Tree with telescopes and towed replicas, chanting her last words like a mantra. In New York, Claire's firm went into lockdown mode. Her VP office sealed off as FBI agents combed through her files. Her colleague, the balding man in pinstripes, cracked under questioning. She was obsessed with that toad, said it was the key. Sightings multiplied like wildfire. In the cornfields of Iowa, a farmer reported two F-22s hovering over his silo, a low hum vibrating his John Deere. In Miami's South Beach, clubgoers filmed lights dancing over the ocean, sinking to the bass thumps. A trucker convoy on I-95 near Philly claimed a hitchhiker in patched jeans vanished mid-conversation, leaving behind a faint glow. Social media lit up. TikToks of glowing eyes in mirrors, Instagram reels of frayed laces found on sidewalks, churches from the Bible Belt filled with prayer vigils, while Silicon Valley billionaires bunkered in Montana compounds, tweeting about transcendence. Then, on a crisp autumn evening in Chicago, it happened again. Wrigley Field was packed for a Cubs game, hot dogs and beers flowing under the floodlights. Midway through the seventh-inning stretch, the hum descended. Fans looked up as two F-22s formed a triangle over the ivy walls. A young concessions worker, early 20s, scuffed sneakers, clutching a faded Cubs plush, stood on the field, eyes luminous. "They're here for us," she whispered into the stadium mic, her voice booming over the speakers. The crowd froze, then chaos, screams, stampedes toward exits. But before security could reach her, the light flashed, and she was gone, along with a dozen fans who'd been closest, their seats empty, nachos spilled. The nation held its breath. Curfews rolled out in major cities, National Guard patrols on highways from the Golden Gate to the Brooklyn Bridge. The president's address that night was primetime gold. "My fellow Americans, we face the unknown together. Stay vigilant, stay united." But in dive bars and suburban basements, the question lingered. Who's next? The thread wasn't just unraveling, it was weaving a new tapestry, one where the ordinary met the extraordinary, and America stared into the abyss, whispering back, "We're ready." As the vanishings escalated, the American heartland became the epicenter of the unraveling. In small-town Kansas, where wheat fields stretched like golden oceans under endless blue skies, a high school football game under Friday night lights turned into ground zero. The bleachers were packed with families in team hoodies, the scent of popcorn and grilled burgers hanging thick in the crisp fall air. The quarterback, a lanky kid with dreams of the NFL, paused mid-huddle as the hum vibrated through the goalposts. Up in the stands, a cheerleader, 17, with frayed ponytail ribbons and scuffed Converse, clutched a worn team mascot plush, her eyes suddenly luminous. "They're calling," she murmured into the wind, her voice carrying over the crowd's cheers. The two F-22s appeared like ghosts above the floodlights, their metallic sheen reflecting the stadium's glow. Panic surged. Parents grabbed kids, coaches blew whistles, the marching band scattered horns across the turf. But before the sheriff's deputies could clear the field, the light pulsed, bright as a 4th of July finale, and she was gone, along with the quarterback and a cluster of fans who'd rushed to help. Empty seats gaped like wounds, spilled sodas pooling on the concrete. Cell phone videos flooded YouTube and TikTok within minutes. The hashtag #Heartland Harbingers trending nationwide. From the Oval Office, the president watched the footage on a bank of screens, his chief of staff pacing with a fresh pot of coffee. "Mr. President, we've got reports from Albuquerque to Anchorage. Same pattern. Ordinary folks, talismans, the hum." The Veep chimed in from a secure line in Colorado. "Sir, NASA's got nothing. SETI's lines are jammed with signals we can't decode. Executive orders flew, mobilizing Space Force assets, grounding commercial flights, even rerouting Amtrak lines. But the two F-22s danced around radar like fireflies, untouchable. In Silicon Valley, tech moguls holed up in fortified campuses, their AI algorithms churning through data for patterns. One billionaire, infamous for his rocket launches from Florida's Space Coast, tweeted from his bunker, "This isn't invasion, it's invitation. Embrace the unknown." His stock soared, even as Wall Street tanked. Down in Nashville, country stars penned ballads about lights in the sky.